Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am your host, Sir Marvelous, your personal professional BDSM dominant coach and teacher during this journey. I am super excited to be launching my very first YouTube video on my YouTube channel because this is something that has been a huge passion of mine for so long, and I feel like it's long overdue for the community. So I ask for your patience to bear with me as I learn the ropes of doing things like putting out content on a regular basis that is for the purpose of educating people about BDSM and many other topics, hopefully, as we expand. Today's video is basically going to be a start of a journey that I like to coin the introduction to Sensual B.D.S.M 101. Where basically I'm going to take you on a journey of teaching people, or teaching you guys, or everyone that's watching actually, everything that you might want to know about starting your sensual journey in BDSM. So basically this is for anyone interested in exploring the sensual side of BDSM, and especially for those who thought or think that BDSM could never ever be for them. And this is prepared by yours truly. First and foremost, my name is Sir Marvelous. I'm a professional BDSM dominant who specializes in the art of sensual BDSM, that is. As far as my credentials, I have been practicing BDSM for 10 years. I have presented and spoken on expert panels, recently on the BDSM panel for Candy Burris' 10th annual bedroom candy convention, which we had a lot of fun there as well. I've also appeared on many podcasts such as Horrible Decisions, Angela Yee's Lip Service, Good Moms Bad Choices, The New Rory and Mal, Cocktails, Hard or Soft, just to name a few. Before I continue, I gotta make it very, very clear that the information that are going to be shared in these videos are going to be from my own experience and my own research and my own interpretation of the things that I've learned. Nothing is to be taken as law, but rather as just advice on your journey. So before we begin, let's talk about what is BDSM. So BDSM is an acronym that stands for bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism. And right away, this is something that I want to speak about because when I talk to people about being a BDSM professional and they go run on Google and they look up what does BDSM stand for, they hear words like bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism. And right away, it doesn't seem like something that they might be into because the words might be a little bit off-putting. So one of the things that I've learned as an educator is to sometimes try to help people identify how something so foreign can actually be relatable to them. So I like to give little examples and analogies of how certain things can relate. So for example, let's go through bondage, right? Bondage is something that is huge in the BDSM community, whether you are going to be doing it in a sensual way or a sadistic way, or no matter which level or where you may fall in on that spectrum. Bondage is something that's super duper important because it is a way to elevate our experience when we are engaging with people via intimacy or, just for the pleasure of that journey. So basically, bondage is for people who may be able to derive pleasure in the idea of being physically or mentally restrained by someone that they trust. There are so many different ways that we can tap into different forms of bondage play. Many of us have already engaged in it and just might not have known it. It could be as simple as using bed restraints, handcuffs, rope, for decorative purposes or for restraining purposes. Even me taking, both your hands and putting them against the wall and putting my hands around your throat can be a form of bondage. So if you've ever engaged in intimacy and you just enjoy just a firm grip around your throat, nothing too hard, but just being able to feel that presence, that's a form of bondage. When you are physically restricting a person from being able to move at their maximum capacity, that is a version of bondage, if I may. And what that does is sometimes it heightens the experience of what you are going through because you are forced to kind of like sit there and focus on what you're experiencing at that particular moment. So again, there are so many different ways that we can tap into bondage. It doesn't always have to be, suspending someone. It doesn't always have to be chaining somebody up. We'll get into some of the more advanced versions of bondage and play and things like that. But even words like chains may be something that's off-putting. But from my experience, I've learned that the feel of something metal and sometimes cold, sometimes warm, depending on the temperature of the room, can really add a therapeutic feeling to the experience that you are going through at that moment. It's like for some people who enjoy, weighted blankets or heated blankets, this is something that can be used as a similar experience, just feeling like a close grip of somebody's just holding you tight, while again being and engaging with someone that you trust. That is probably one of the biggest ingredients in order to have successful bondage play. So moving along. The next thing is discipline. Now, when people hear discipline, a lot of times, people may go right away and say, I'm a grown up. I don't need nobody telling me what to do, bossing me around or anything like that. But as my mother always used to say, there's a time and place for everything, right? And I've learned that though so many of us may have certain types of characteristics and many other elements of our lives, when we engage in moments of intimacy, we tend to take on different roles or, step into things that we are normally not able to do. So one basic example, way that a person could be a disciplinary if in a moment of intimacy is if, you're ever having sex with somebody and they're just like giving you demands while they are, in control of that experience. They're telling you, don't move, arch it, look at me, look me in my eyes, don't you look away, you don't come until I tell you to come. These are ways that, by definition, they're using discipline, right? They're telling you what to do and you are giving them that consent, you are giving them that power to basically say those things and potentially have you listen to doing those things. Now, what can that do? That can be a huge turn on for those who are into this, right? We'll speak more about consent as this goes along, which is probably going to be a video all by itself. But needless to say, again, all of these things that I'm speaking about are with the intention that you are engaging with people with their consent. So again, when you're dealing with somebody that you trust, when you're dealing with somebody that you've given your consent to and that you genuinely have a connection with, these experiences can be elevated by simple things like the simple act of bondage, just having somebody pin your hands down with their hands to the bed as they make love to you, or as they kiss you, or as they tell you beautiful things in your ear. As far as discipline, just telling somebody not to fucking move until I'm done with you could be a form of discipline. I might not even have to, put my hands on you to get that bondage out of you. Just me telling you that alone can be enough to kind of like turn you on to the point you're like, ooh, I'm not going to move at all, right? And then as you progress in your relationship or in your experience with King, those levels can increase, right? A good example applicable to a lot of people is if you've ever wanted to be held accountable. An example of that might be a coach or a trainer, right? For those who everybody, I don't believe there's a single person that might be watching this video that says they don't need to exercise. And even if you are in good shape, you're probably going to need to continue to exercise in order to maintain that great shape. But for the majority of the world, we have a problem with discipline. We have a problem with being consistent, even when things are in our best interest. So sometimes having that person to say, hey, it's 6 a.m., let's get to the gym, or it's 5 p.m., let's start this workout, or, let's focus on what you're eating. Let me know what you ate today. Let me know how many bottles of water you drank. Let me know how many things you did as far as physical activity, just to hold yourself accountable, and being able to have a punishment or a punishment, which we'll speak about later, that fits the crime, so to speak, can be a lot of fun, because holding somebody accountable without a punishment to follow up or a reward to follow up can be kind of ineffective. So there are many different ways that we can use these playful, kinky ideas such as discipline in our relationship to kind of like enhance those experiences and really motivate us to do the things that we want to do that are better for us. But next up, we're going to be talking about sadism and masochism. And these are two words that can be very, very off-putting your first time reading or hearing about them. And if you maybe correlate the verbiage in some of those words to other things that we are familiar with, it can be really, really off-putting, right? But the best way that I like to explain feminine is a sadistic person, or somebody on the sadist side of the coin is basically someone who can derive pleasure in delivering different forms of pleasurable pain to their bottom or the person that they are engaging with. And a masochist is basically on the other side of the coin. That's the person that can derive pleasure in the idea of engaging in different forms of pain play in a pleasurable way, being on the receiving end of that. Now, before you leave, let me try to give you some examples of different forms of sadistic play that we may not necessarily immediately correlate to pain, because it's very, very enjoyable. If you've ever been engaging in passionate love making with a partner and they might have scratched your back during that experience, by definition, that is a form of pain, but depending on how engulfed you are in that particular experience, you may not necessarily run and want to call the cops or break up with that particular person. In fact, it probably drove you deeper into that scene, depending on the level of that scratch. But of course, this is something that's very, very common during people's intimate experiences. Another super duper common form of sadistic play is spankings during sex, right? If you've ever been making love to a person, maybe hitting it from behind, or they're riding or something like that, and you correctly at the right moment deliver some spanks, it can truly be something that adds so much more pleasure to that particular experience. Earlier I mentioned an example of bondage play that can actually kind of be translated into a form of sadistic pain play, which is that same firm grip that I told you about earlier around a person's throat. For those who are into that type of play, you know, I hear this is very, very common. Again, keyword with someone that you trust and does know how to do it correctly. Having a firm grip around your neck can be something that really adds pleasure to that experience. It's kind of adds that thrill of like, oh my God, this motherfucker crazy. But at the same time, I know that they love and they care, and I can trust this person to care for me enough to know, like, you know, let's not take this too far, but we're going to add a little edgy edge to this particular experience. So by definition, these are all things that can be or fall under the realm of different forms of pain. Now, the most common way that sadistic people engage with masochists is different forms of impact play, right? Impact play is most commonly recognized as like spankings, paddling, flogging, and different forms of impact and things of that nature. And on the outside looking in, it can look crazy. I'm going to be using that word a lot because this is probably the way that most people that don't study kink look at it when they see it on television. Like, oh, it's very few people, well, I shouldn't say very few people, but there are more people that look at it like, ah, that looks crazy, than the people that's like, oh, that looks amazing, right? But when you truly understand the science behind a lot of what it is that we do, it starts to make so much sense. You know, for example, I speak about paddles a lot and the difference between, you know, good feeling paddles or more intense feeling paddles. And based on the materials of that particular paddle, it can make all the difference. For example, a leather paddle feels very, very different than a wooden paddle. A wooden paddle has very little energy distribution, so when you hit somebody with something that's wood, it kind of stings, not kind of, it actually stings a lot more, and it can stay in that particular area. When you hit somebody with something that's leather or suede, it has much more energy distribution, so when you impact a person's booty with that, then it sends beautiful vibrations all throughout their butt and to other areas of their body that we definitely want to engage and make feel good. So different examples like that are like really big deal breakers or deal makers, so to speak, when it comes to how we are engaging in different forms of pain play. Of course, we're going to definitely expand on that. I'm going to be bringing out examples of toys and showing you the different materials and things of that nature as we move along, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview of some of these words. So again, BDSM stands for bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism. So I hope that you understand a little bit more about what that means now. Hey guys, Sir Marvelous here. I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you so much for watching my very first YouTube video on the introduction to Sensual BDSM 101. I hope you guys learned a lot, and now that you understand a little bit more about what the acronym means and a couple of examples of how some of the things that we do in BDSM can be applicable to your own intimacy, I'm really hoping it's starting to make a little bit more sense now. With that said, I want you to stay tuned because the very next video is going to speak about the reasons we like BDSM, the different ways that we like to engage in it, and a couple of tips and tricks on things that you can do tonight to start getting a little bit more kinky. So if you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this video with one person that you think can benefit from some of this information. Thank you again. Hope to see you on the kinky side.